So this video is going to be part 2 of my Guilds of Ravnica draft. Part 1 was when I did the draft itself and built the deck. So if you're not familiar with what I'm going to be playing, you could go check out that video. But we're going to dive right into the first game. And again, because I wanted to showcase how the deck that I drafted functions and how it performs, I'm going to be putting these up win or lose. We're hoping that it's a lot of wins. But this is Magic. There is a chance for Mana Screw, Mana Flood, and everything in between. Alright, so we're technically a 3-color deck because of this Integrity and Intervention, but the only cards that we're running that activate it are this Boros Guildgate. But since we got both of them in our hand and we have all of our colors covered, we're going to go ahead and keep this. We even have some 2-drops here. This is an okay start for us. We're pretty alright with it. Now, it looks like our opponent mulliganed. They are down to 6 cards, which is also good for us. We're on the play, meaning we go first. We don't draw a card for our turn. We're going to play this. It comes into play tapped. It's a good first turn play so that we don't have to worry about not being able to play anything there. And we don't have anything that costs 2 blue, so we don't need to lead off with the island here. We're going to start with that. Fresh-Faced Recruit is a more aggressive opener than the Urchin, so we're going to start with this as well. I say more aggressive both because it attacks for 2, but also because when it's attacking, it has first strike. So typically it's a good practice in Magic if you're not familiar to play your lands, but then before you commit to anything, you want to attack first and then play stuff during your second main phase. And you do this because if your opponent has any tricks or things like that, you want to leave your mana open to potentially respond if they were going to do something, right? Like if they tried to target my creature, I could maybe buff it so that it survives. And then once combat's done, you go to the second main phase and then you can develop again. So we're going to go ahead and play this Leapfrog, because it's a big body, but also because this gains flying if we've played an instant or a sorcery this turn. And flying is important because it is evasion, so if they play a creature that's on the ground that could block, if this has flying and their creature does not, they cannot block this. Again, Magic has been around for a quarter of a century, but on the off chance that you've never watched Magic before and you don't know, instants and sorceries are basically like actions if you've played Legends, or spells if you've played Artifact. Instants are things you can play on either turn, your turn or your opponent's. Sorceries you can only play on your turn. So our opponent goes ahead and plays a creature. We're going to play our land, and now we have a decision to make, because we could use this, for example, to deal 3 damage to this, removing it, and they're tapped out and can't respond. And then we could push damage, or we could just attack with this because it has first strike when it's attacking, or at least when it's our turn. And then they're not likely to block, but that means that our Leapfrog is not pushing damage in that instance. And if we top deck a land next turn, we're likely going to want to take advantage of this as well. So I think that we are going to go ahead and use this as removal. So this is a dual colored card. So when you play it, you get to pick which one you want. We want to choose the 3 damage, gain 3 health. My timer is going to start going because I'm talking instead of playing. And now we want everything to attack. You can see this Leapfrog jumped up into the air to represent that it gained flying when I played that spell. And we are pressuring our opponent. In Magic, both players start with 20 health, and as you can imagine, if you get them down to 0, you win the game. Now, you can also win the game in other ways. There are cards with alternate win conditions on them, and ooh, that is a big body. We're gonna go ahead and play our island. And we're gonna attack before we activate this, because again, we want to see what, if anything, our opponent does. If they choose to block, even if they take this block here, this will have 2 damage assigned to it, and we could use this to do the last damage. But they dodge They dodge us there. So we're going to play this. This is a Planeswalker.
I've flown on Gale Force.
It has its own health, if you will. It's loyalty. And you can use it in different ways. We could deal damage to a creature, but it would only deal 1. So we're going to do this +1 effect. Let's just look at the top 2 cards of our library. Good. And we can put 1 in our hand and 1 in the graveyard. We're actually going to take this island. This has Jumpstart, so we can play it from the graveyard. But also, we're going to take this island because that will allow us to get to 6 mana next turn, which will turn on this. And this is a finisher, right? If we can deal 2 more damage, then this can deal the final 6. It is a very powerful spell, very powerful effect. So that is the reason that we kind of want to guarantee that we get that island. Now, our opponent gets to decide if they're attacking us or our Planeswalker here. And they choose to attack us and leave our Planeswalker alone. It's an interesting strategy. I assume they're going to play more then, because otherwise they've left themselves with no blockers. And they're just attacking because they are conceding. So there you have it. That is game 1 of our draft, and navigated pretty well in my opinion. And hopefully we can maintain that level of success. You do earn some dailies, some gold as you progress through the drafts. Since that was a pretty quick game, we're going to go ahead and jump into a second one here. No point in not, right? We want to see some action. We want to see some games and hopefully see some wins here. Everything was coming up aces for us that game. This time around, it might not be as good. Now, we do have a 2-drop and a 3-drop, and if we draw a land before we get there, a 4, could maybe get some value out of this. Our opponent's going first this time, but this is good enough for us to keep. When your opponent goes first, that means we get to draw a card at the start of our turn. Now, sadly, this goblin is a problem. We would like to kill this, because this can get out of hand pretty quickly if you allow it. We also have one in our own deck. We're going to let that resolve, because there's nothing else that we can do about it. I'll just actually say we'll auto-pass till the end of our turn. So our opponent, so there is a land, so we'll eventually be able to play that. We're going to go ahead and drop this down. Would not be surprised if they end up buffing this, and the reason they would buff this is because the Mentor ability means if they attack with both, this will give this a +1/+1 counter. And that is, in fact, the route that they take. So this, because it's their turn, also has first strike. Ours does not, but we do still want to get rid of this, so we are going to jump in front. And we're going to go ahead and develop a 3/2. Our 3/2 will not be able to block this outright and kill it, sadly, because again, this will have first strike when it attacks. But we did want to get something on the board. So we're going to say no blocks, and then hope that they're still not developing anything. Which was not the case, sadly. And now we have some decisions to make. We could play this Drake, but all it does is draw us a card. We could use this to deal 3 damage to this. We would gain 3 health. It also means this could not attack or block, because it cannot attack or block alone. The problem, however, is that the intervention side requires white, and we have not drawn a white source of mana. So as nice as that would be, it is just not something we can do at the moment. We're going to go ahead and play this Drake instead, mostly to cycle through and see if we can find some answers, but we're going to say no attacks. We'll likely end up giving this up to block here, unless they have something that buffs, which is entirely possible. Both red and white have some great ways to buff the attack and or the health of things. Well, we can no longer block with our 3-2. How dare they? We are going to take a lot of damage here. But it is in our best interest to still keep this here. Oh, that's a problem as well. Things are just not going well for us at the moment. Gonna go ahead and play that. And gonna go ahead and develop this as well. And since this cannot block, we have no reason to not attack. And if they trade here, that's actually a win for us, but there's no way that they're actually going to do that. So it's not looking good. Our opponent got off to a far more aggressive start than we did, unlike the last game. And these mentors, this is why in the part 1 of the video series I was talking about, I really like to draft Boros. I really like to draft these red-white decks when I'm drafting, because the mentor chains that you can create are typically pretty powerful. And this is going to get buffed because of the mentor. Sadly, again, there's not much that we can really do about it. We need to assign some blockers. We need to get rid of at least one of these first striking madmen. We're gonna go ahead and block here. Probably should just avoid taking damage and seeing if we can draw some removal. So I suppose we'll just go ahead and block here as well. Sign blockers, and then we are going to use at least the integrity side to buff our Drake. This will allow this to survive and hopefully trade with that unless they have their own combat tricks. Because again, we're just trying to buy ourselves some turns. But if we don't draw some answers here soon, we're in a world of hurt. Specifically this. If we can get rid of this and they don't have another creature, then this can't attack us next turn. That's the ideal scenario. And instead, we are going to lose this game. We've drawn a lot of land. So you may have heard me mention things like mana screw, mana flood. This is a solid example of what you would consider mana flood. So while my opponent has played 4 lands and then a lot of threats, I have played 6 lands and still have 2 more in hand. So if these could have been usable cards, we might have had a shot. But at the moment, they are not usable cards. We do at least get to feel good about counterspelling that, but then we just turn around and die, so. Our opponent doesn't know that. But we are very, very dead here. So we're going to start this draft 1-1. Again, feels pretty bad. The 1 win, very convincing. This loss, not very convincing. But them's the break sometimes. Sometimes you just draw an awful lot of land. That's going to be it for today's. Again, we're going to continue this video series through the entire draft, win or lose, all the way to its completion. So I will see you in the next video. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching.